Good afternoon traders, it's Simon at Kairos Capital Markets with the weekly review of Aussie dollar, pound yen and euro dollar. So I know this week we did a midweek review just because a little bit late, and I was already again telling you I believe the dollar would get weaker. And on the weekly candle at that time, if we look back at the video there, this weekly candle here was actually bullish. Now I was still telling you it looks bearish, and obviously the end of the week now we've actually closed out as a nice high test there. Now the level at 12100 is a great weekly level, but also at the same time it's a beautiful daily level, which I will show you now. And here it is there, and you've got several touches there, 1, 2, double top pattern there forming, a little bit of a kiss there, touch there, couple touches there, and we zoom out there as well. So this key level since breaking up from 2015 has been key all the way through, and yet again we've got no exception to the rule here. So what I'm expecting this week really in all fairness is some bearish pullback now on the US dollar to around about where the circle is, to put in a nice right shoulder. Now obviously we could come down to this upward sloping trend line, which would then still make a right shoulder, would still put in a higher low, and would actually be testing this 6-year trend line on the weekly perspective as well. So even if it does come down as low as this, it just puts the dollar into great value to what I see at the moment. So now let's look at the intraday time frame for the DXY at the moment, or the US dollar index. So we've got a huge MACD divergence on the 1 hour chart here, and you can see now all we've got to do is put a lower high into this 1 hour chart, and that will change the trend completely. The 4 hour chart is still looking slightly bullish at the moment. It hasn't confirmed anything. The reason why, we're at the 4 hour 50 EMA and we are putting low test and reversal candles there. So for me personally, I just feel we would have a little move up, and then when we break the 4 hour 50 EMA, that's when I think it will happen. And you can already see at 12.060 would probably put inverse head and shoulder pattern into this. So if you pull back up to this area here somewhere, the 1 hour 50 EMA will just slightly raise up a little bit, then it'll come back down again. It puts your head and shoulder pattern into it. The left shoulder here, this is the head, and the right shoulder will form there. A downward sloping trend line as the neckline, and then we'll break down quite nicely. So knowing that and what we're looking at, this is what I see on Aussie dollar now. So on the daily perspective, you can clearly see this is a downtrend here, no problem at all, where the dollar has been getting stronger. And I've just highlighted this downward sloping green trend line because it has linked 4 times together. I would have a sneaking suspicion that if the dollar does really devalue quite a lot down to our weekly trend line, this would break back up and would most likely test 77, which would also coincide with this upward sloping trend line as well. So although it tests 77, you'll probably find it to be like a little mini double top pattern on 77 and then break back down again. So for this week, I do feel the Aussie dollar will actually increase in value now. So let's look at the daily time, the intraday time frame, see what we got here. And again, we've got this 1 hour 50 EMA being respected a couple of times, and a nice breakout there. A little nice double bottom, good bullish pattern there, breakout. So just looking for the retest to pull back down again we are. And you'll see it with most dollar pairs. You'll definitely see it with the euro dollar as well. The problem again you have would be the 4 hour 50 EMA as going against the trend, but the fact that you've got a nice low test on the weekly perspective on the Aussie dollar, I would say that the weekly will push past this initial 4 hour 50 EMA. So now let's look at euro dollar now, because euro dollar is very, very similar to Aussie dollar here. Now obviously I expected the price to move back up to this level of 1.2. As you can see, it's already written in there, and obviously it would put a head and shoulder pattern in place. So your left shoulder's here, your head's here, and your right shoulder's here. So seeing that would be quite nice. You've got a nice little double bottom there forming on the daily perspective, and also you've got a double bottom overall on the weekly chart with the head and shoulder pattern here forming right now. As you can see, I've got a zone between 1.2 and 1.215, just because it goes back quite some time in the past there. So obviously I'm expecting a pullback there. It does look quite nice. And again, you can see you've got this doji, a move up, bearish engulfing candle, then another low test there. And you can see RSI is bottomed out at 0. So I really do expect this chart to move back up. Now, the weekly 50 MA doesn't give me any care in the world. I mean, for the last 3 years or so. It hasn't really been respected. A give or take an area, but it's not been respected at all, so I really wouldn't give two hoots about that. Like I said, so on the daily chart we got the little mini double bottom, and when we come down to the intraday chart for this pair here, I have already outlined what I think would be a good trade. So this was the first one I was looking at, where I thought maybe it'll just pop up, pop down again. It did kind of go a little bit in my favour, but then it did break down to the downside and wasn't very happy with that at all. It did not want to go where I wanted it to go. So we can delete that now, we can. But here you can see we got this, we are making lower lows here, it was on the 4-hour chart. But MACD divergence is putting higher lows in, so already the MACD is putting higher lows in, and the MACD has also bottomed out before in the past, and we can see here as well it did put in a MACD divergence there. It was breaking down, then did pop back up, so I do see now that we've got a nice pattern there forming, and I would definitely say it's a nice trade. To look at it now, I do think we need a bit more of a pullback than what we've got so far. Again, huge MACD divergence, bullish MACD divergence on the 1-hour chart and the 4-hour chart, like I said. So what I'm looking for now really at the moment is a nice pullback to some value. I'd say 1.162 around this area here would be good value. Obviously on Friday I was waiting more of a pullback to the pivot, but if you was to do something like this, the fact you got your double bottom like that, put your Fibonacci in there, that's a nice safe stop as such, and we do think 1.2 would be roughly where we'd head to, so we can put 1.199 in just for the moment, and you're looking at say a 5% trade there. If you wanted a very safe trade, personally myself, as the daily 50 has been respected 3 times here, I would say just going to the recent highs of 1.181, 1.182 would be very, very ideal, and that would be just to around about here somewhere, and there's still a 2.5% trade there, that is. So for me personally, that's a trade idea I like. It lines up very nicely with the weekly, the dailies, and the intradays. This is far nicer than the Aussie dollar. And again, if you look at the 4-hour chart as well, we did break above the 4-hour 50 MA, although it hasn't really been respected too much since June. So for me, the 4-hour 50 MA isn't too much of a concern in this chart. So now the last one for the week will be pound yen as usual. And this one, to be honest now, it's one of these trades where I'm not really interested no more. We had to sell there, it broke down, it stopped at 144.5, and for me personally, I'm not really too bothered now. For me to take a trade in this, it needs to either break and retest 144 or break above and retest 148, to be quite honest now, because you're getting squeezed out, you are. And as you can see here now, the fact we broke this downward sloping trend line, but now we just messed around and flirted and done nothing with any volume or anything. For me, I'm kind of out of this trade now. Obviously, there will be some smaller intraday trade you can most likely take there, but for me it's not really what I'm not really too caring about it. It does still look bearish though overall, but I don't think the bearish strength that we did expect to see come out has actually happened, and so for me it's just one of these trades where I'm not particularly interested in for this week. Okay guys, any questions, give us a shout. If not, we'll speak to you soon. Take care.